Hi, Space Whisperers. How are you all? I hope you're doing well. Today, we have a special guest, Maya Farah Jones. And I met her online through a space, a container hosted by Ramya, and it's called the Healing Room. It's the end of 2020, and this beautiful healing room showed me so much about our physicality surrounds us, the physical, but also the everything else, the things we can't see. We can't see today, but are obviously everywhere around us. Thoughts and feelings and creation of spaces in the mind and connecting with other people. I have no clue how to explain that, but the thing is, it felt like I was in a room with everyone in the healing room. And it turned out that there is a thing that I didn't know existed, and it's called Reiki. And almost everyone in the healing room was a Reiki master. Thank you. No wonder I would feel things I never felt before, or believed in things that I wasn't aware of. And Maya was one of these beautiful, beautiful creatures, humans. We're humans. Develop a connection with everyone there, but with her, it's been constant. And one of the reasons is because through social media, I started observing the beautiful flower world. When I say flower world, it's like, this is a profession, a florist. I know. I bring this curiosity into the world, and sometimes I prefer not knowing or not focusing on things until I meet a person that they are surrounded by that world. And then I get to meet that existence through them. And so I've learned to appreciate flowers as an art. And to be honest, I talked so much during the episode. I wish that I can go back in silence, be silent, and just listen to the wisdom of Maya. There is so much wisdom in her, and the thing is, you can see the true essence of an artist through her, and the reasons why art is so revolutionary. The artists are the people that shift communities, travel, they move, and when they move and they travel, they start changing, right? It reminds me of where I used to live in Williamsburg, and it was such an artist location. Now it has changed, but like, I don't know if you've heard this, but like, realtors apparently know when a area is going to change. When certain people move into an area, they know, so they start investing. They know that community is going to shift very soon. And money moves the world, but also art moves the world. Art, all forms of art, and in this case is flowers, but the essence of it is very similar. And I think I didn't have a connection to flowers because I always saw them as something that was going to die in a few days. But I realized, I don't remember from who, that bringing flowers into your home or into a space, into your office, shifts. It brings colors. It brings smells. It connects you to nature, but it also shows you how delicate our time in this earth is transcendent. It moves very quickly, very slowly, depending how you're tuned into time. It's exciting to see behind the scenes of art, of design, of people that are living in a society that is so different, that sometimes doesn't allow us to tune in to our creation, our the things that we want to create. Hope you love it as much as I did, and you reach out to her. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Rainey. How are you today?
I am good. I'm very happy to see you.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be with you again. So nice to connect with you.
Mm-hmm. You know, every time I see a flower, I think of you. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I relate you with flower, so you're my flower, Maya. And then you have this beautiful pink shirt, sweater, and it just and yellow in the background,
Yeah.
red chair. It just it adds up to my image of you. So or how I think of you when I
Yeah.
think of you.
Yeah. Thank you. I do feel like I'm a walking flower, and I've been feeling like that my whole life. Sometimes more rigid like a bamboo, but very often more like a flower. Yeah. Or a very ancient pine or an oak or a birch, So not just a flower, but the trees too. Yeah. So thank you. I
I
guess
can
I,
see
I
that.
make an effort to dress that way too.
Okay, okay. And I'm also thankful because I didn't know flowers can be art, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds weird because I'm thinking of like paintings I've done with flowers. So it's not that specifically. It's like nature has always used flower as, you know, a canvas in a way, or beautifying, or smells for the senses. But to actually use it as a human art, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I never saw that. I never saw that a florist, and it's not like trying to be, you know, like it's it just blew my mind. I
Mm-hmm.
guess when I learned your profession and what you do, and like saw a few of your work, I was just like impressed. That's
Mm-hmm.
all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm.
I think culturally, we've been led to forget that art is not just what is created by us, but what is created by nature and by God. I think that we've been distracted a lot from the fact that a lot of artists creatively find inspiration in nature, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the artist capturing the work of the great artist, the great creator. It's always been there. And, I've always been really passionate about art. I think that I've always been able to hear what the great creator is creating through the artists. And so to work with flowers, work with plants creatively just came very naturally to me since a very young age. Yeah, very young, I was finding myself not just painting with paints, but like as kids do, discover, a dandelion. This moment when a kid first gets their dandelion that it has fully bloomed, right? These seeds, these pods, and we blow on them and we discover, like, wow, there is so much here. Our senses become alive, heightened. So from that moment, when my dad gave me my first opportunity to do that, I was mesmerized by the way how sunlight in that moment shone in a certain way that allowed the wind to pass through in a certain way that allowed me, when I blew on these seed pods, they floated and the light was just incredible, almost like I could see a rainbow. This memory, I speak of it and it's very real, it's very tangible. So yeah. I really love nature. I really am so grateful for my eyes, for my senses, and for the opportunity to live 4 seasons and to find the awe in the 4 seasons, and then also to find the awe in the spaces in the world where there's only 2 seasons, rainy season and dry season too. These flowers that are just thriving, so colorful, Their pigments are incredible too, right? So, yeah.
And so, I have a few questions of like, who are you in this world, like right
Okay.
now? Like, how would people recognize you? And then also your name, right? What is your relationship with your name?
Mm. The name, which name do you talk of? Because I go by many names. This is it. There's
Ooh,
many,
so right now I'm thinking Maya because that's
yeah,
how I met you. I love Sarah.
yeah,
Maya Sarah, like
yeah,
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 and I know Sarah has a lot. Like it's well, at least a Sarah I knew in high school.
mm,
It was Princess.
yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, it means princess. So I've always been fascinated by my name. I think as a young mixed child in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, this name in the years that I was born in the 80s, was not a familiar name. And most people who recognized the name were either South American, um, read the Hebrew language and the Arabic language. So people would encounter my name when I was young and be very much in awe to hear it. But then in my very Canadian white Anglo-Saxon or Francophone schools, people couldn't get that name. They couldn't get it. I was teased and bullied consistently. So I've had a fascinating relationship with my name since I'm very young. I didn't like it for a while. I have also a memory of like this moment in time where I was crying to my mother and I asked her, like, why would you give me this name? It's not common. And she's like, but you're not common. And then my response was, I want to be common. I want to fit in. And now I can't stand to fit in. I'll do anything to not fit in. So about the name. So Maya in many religions means many different things. Illusion is what we know it as because of the Sanskrit, which I don't identify with so much, which is surprising. Most people would be like, yeah, it's Maya illusion. And I would be like, yes, yes, okay, that is your belief. But the only affiliation I have to this aspect of illusion is that whenever I'm in a very spiritual state, I would like to be invisible. So that's the only time that this illusion thing comes in. Then it also means mother, the great mother, or um, what is the other one?
Mother.
Yeah, the great mother, and then it also means from God, like directly given to earth from God, this movement, and water,
Wow.
which those I identify more with because I have a tendency to shift into the presence of the Great Mother, the soft, caring, understanding, comprehensive spirit. And then this from God aspect is that I find being here on planet Earth a very interesting experience. So I don't always understand my humanness and the humanness of others, the complexities, the how we move through our human dynamic. So this from God aspect, yeah, I'm very much connected with that, like this watcher who's watching humans in their activities, like a messenger. Hey, great creator, God is within me and can see, and there's this communication. So the Maya part is that. Then the Sarah part is princess, or biblically, it's princess of the multitudes. So not just the princess of one, but the princess of for all. So this kind of like kingdom representative. So it's not just this princess that's spoiled, but the young spirit in the kingdom who is joyful, who is playful, can be mischievous, but also understands how she is representing spirit. From my understanding, I'm still trying it on, this name, because I wasn't named like Maya hyphen Sarah. It's really one name, which was an interesting thing. Maya Sarah. When you say it, you're like, okay, what is that? It's not like Anne Marie. You know, it
Yeah.
rings differently. So the uniqueness of the way how my name was brought together, I feel that very unique.
Thank you for answering this. I can see how much our names really does have an influence in our lives when we're born. And you know, when I talk to parents, sometimes they would say, I had a name for my child, but when I hold them in my arms,
Yeah.
I felt that wasn't the name for them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and certain things like that. So our names, we do carry it with us and our experiences. It does influence us, even any name. And you have two very opposing names
Mm-hmm.
in a way that it's like it brings together very very nicely, like the yin yang in a way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which I see it as fighting, but I'm realizing that it's just this is our life. It's just that balance between the two, or no balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had a interesting childhood with my name. So
Okay. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. My name is invented, so it's not like a common name.
sure.
It's more common now. I'm realizing is, and it has 10 letters, so it's Rainelina,
Wow.
Rainelina. Yeah,
Beautiful. That's
and
stunning.
so my sister was 6 years old
Mm-hmm.
when I was born, and so my mom allowed her to name me. And well, as a child, I never liked it, but everyone around me always usually my family never called me my full name, so it was always Rainy. And I remember in school when the teacher would be announcing everyone's name, and if it's the first time, right, and they stop, I always would lift my hand and say Rainy or Rainy. You know, like I knew it was me. Like immediately, I was just waiting for it, you know,
Uh-huh.
just to put my hand up because they would stop. They didn't know because it has a silent H
Uh-huh.
and a Y. So
Uh-huh.
but but it's a combination of many names, and
Yeah.
I picked my mom and my dad's, which is counselor of God,
Wow. Beautiful. Look at that.
cons-
Look at
consejera
that.
de Dios, and
Look
it's
at
also hija de Dios, daughter of
wow.
God.
Wow. Look at that.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah,
Look at that.
yeah, yeah. I also there was a point in my life. It was a very short one. No, actually, it wasn't. There was a moment, I think, since 8 and up until maybe 15 or 16, that I wanted to be named Stephanie because I was
Sure.
obsessed with this singer and her name was
Okay.
Stephanie.
Okay. Huh.
And I don't know, I loved her music and I would listen to her all the time in cassette. I would put my cassette
Right.
play and listen to this artist. And but then eventually I I accepted it. And there's a daily acceptance of my name. There's a daily acceptance because I usually, when I introduce myself as Rainy, like rainy day, people are always like, what? So there's always a what or a pause every time someone listens to my name.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a daily thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this name, your name is so powerful and carries so much. And so, yeah, I pray for you to embody your name. Yeah. Yeah.
I love your name. Every time I see it or think about it, I am just like, it feels very earthy. And when you mentioned the word mother, I've been in your presence where I felt cared for as a mother with you, even though we're the same age. So,
Yeah. Thank you
yeah.
for that. Mm-hmm.
And how did you allow this mix of being the artist in your life,
Yeah.
but also the receiver of messages from God? I think you
Yeah.
you have a very strong channel
Yeah.
between both.
Yeah. It's an acceptance of both at the same exact time because there is no separation between the artist and the messenger. It's the same. The expression of it is different. I feel that I'm co-creating with God in both ways, right? And I probably feel that way because I wake up in the morning with the intentionality to be the messenger of God in the way that I can be with my flavor. So this is not an egotistical thing. This is very much a question of me saying, having an honest conversation with God and saying, today, once again, I am grateful to be here in this life, in this body, healthy. Now show me how to step out of the way so that there's less of me and more of you. And that translates to me as working with flowers, working with paint, working with speech, this area, expressing the heart. So the heart is also here connected to the hands. I have such an affinity to water, so it has to move out of me. And so that's how it happens. Yeah. This affinity to the plant life from my childhood, I'm attracted to it right away. So it comes through the artist in that way. But once again, the most important thing I think for myself as an artist is stepping out of the way. Mm-hmm. I've collected wisdom through workshops and classes and experiences through jobs and personal relational experiences. So that gives me kind of like inspiration, right? But the main work is like, hey, this personality that carries also all of its experiences, how much can I watch it kind of take a back seat, relax, and become driven by spirit? Yeah. So it just comes through like this. Yeah.
And then your clients are the people you've been able to, you know, sell your art or witness your art. Like, what is your experience through their experience? Because, we
Yeah.
never can really know their experience, but we have
Mhm.
a feeling of it, or they
Yeah.
express it.
So I've had a lot of time in the flower world to really witness how I interact with clients. Um, and so I take a lot of my toolkit with me wherever I go. These are again workshops, classes, and spiritual experiences. This is like the tool belt. And I'll approach someone as with a lot of curiosity right away and a lot of openness. So again, this spirit of the mother comes in. I could feel her come in. I'm like, okay, God is in the room. Maya's stepping out of the way. I get to take a back seat and I get to watch how this is going to unfold. So I approach people with a lot of curiosity, a lot of listening. I won't say much. I'm not one to say much. So people get perplexed. I'll ask one question. I'll ask an opening question, right? How can I help you? How can I be of service to what you want to express through the flowers? Is what I come with first. Automatically, it can either diffuse someone's fear or it could heighten their fear. I've seen both of it happen because all of a sudden I'm giving somebody space to choose what they want with a wide assortment of colors and shapes and forms. So some people are like, wow, it takes away the anxiety, it diffuses the pressure to create something, or it adds pressure to create something. I really enjoy the people who can soften in the environment of exploring fun. I want people to have fun with color. I want people to touch. I want people to smell. I want people to engage. And this way they feel, again, less anxiety and less pressure, and they feel free to be playful like a child again. So this is like, for me, the stuff, the really, really good stuff. And I take my time. Flower shop world, there people don't like it when you take your time. But for me, I'm like, you know what? If it's your one moment of the day or maybe the month and you're coming in just to buy one rose, take 15 minutes, man. I'm happy to take 15 minutes with you and just like check this out, check out this flower. What do you think of that? What do you Yeah. No pressure about time also to create.
Yeah, you know, it's I think sometimes it takes a little bit of messaging so people to understand when they are showing up to you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
and I'm working with this now. It's
Yeah.
like when people already show up, they have an idea of what you're going to give them. It's
Yeah.
very hard, but I think there's a work there.
Mm-hmm.
Um because you are bringing something special. Like, can you repeat the question you asked them? I'm very curious.
Which question though? Because I asked many questions.
You said there's one, you mentioned like there's one I usually ask when people show up in the
Yeah.
shop.
So, how can I help you?
How can I help you? Okay,
Yeah. What is it that you're looking for today?
that's very simple.
It's very simple. How can I help you? And like to leave space for the person to answer. Allow that silence to come. Give it space,
Mm,
give it time. What
allow
are you
silence.
looking for? Who are you buying for? What are you inspired by? What are your favorite colors? Or what is the favorite colors of the person you're buying for? When you start to ask these questions to people, they begin to realize, which is interesting because I don't think growing up in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, people knew what people's favorite colors are. And I realized that nowadays people are not so attentive to ask, hey, what's your favorite color? Like almost as though it's a cheesy question, but let's be honest, like colors have affinities and they move people in different ways. So I've seen some people stop and really think, especially the men and the boys who buy flowers or for their partner, or people buying flowers for their partner. Because, I grew up in a time where we were really interested by that. And so I'm finding now people are like, wow, okay, yeah, I am going to inquire a bit deeper in my friendships and my relationships. Like, hey, what's your favorite color? Yeah, what's your favorite color? What moves you? What's moving you today? This is a good one. People are like, well, okay, I'm all right. You start to uncover a bit like what the person's going through and you give them a bit of space and you're like, that's cool. You're in front of the flowers. Take a moment. I'd be like, take a moment. Just let the colors move you. And then I'll come back and see you. Like, give the person space to just be one with all this color, shapes, forms, smells. And then there's more diffusion of pressure and then they soften even more. And then it gets to be like, hey, okay, let's create together.
Isn't it interesting? I think sometimes asking that question, what's your favorite color,
Hmm.
might stop a person because then it's almost like, oh, this is my identity, right? I love pink.
Yeah.
So,
The
it's like a very fixed But maybe if you ask the question, what color do you feel today?
Yeah.
Right?
Wow, we just took it to next level, becoming in the present, right? Because like as you say that, I feel a presence, but I feel complete expansion, right? We're a lot about talking about being present and being in expansive states. So yeah, what kind of questioning can we ask to bring presence and expansion? I love that. I love this um question. What color are you feeling today?
How are you feeling today? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that question came up listening to you because I'm thinking like colors have represent something for all of us, consciously or
Mm-hmm.
unconsciously. Psychological, there's many studies about color.
Yeah.
Like I'm wearing red. Red brings activation.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can remember, right? And
Sure.
so blue has a certain piece to it, or green, it's in lushness, and you can start relating just by experience as well. Maybe red for someone else represents something else,
Mm.
or pink, apart from the marketing. We If
Yeah.
we remove the marketing away from it, then color is just vibrant, and there's people that see auras around
Yep.
people, right?
Yeah.
And you see old paintings where they always drew auras around. Not
Yeah.
always, but there was a few people they would draw auras around.
Yes. Yes. We have to remember that the more that we've added technology to our humanness, to what our eyes and senses perceive, we have also changed our capacity and opportunity to see somebody with everything that they're carrying in their aura. This was like a normal thing when we were more like hunter gatherers, our eyes were capturing nature only, right? And the few humans around us. So our eyes were more sensitive to seeing auras, right? Now we have to do so much to get ourselves ready in order to see that, right? Because
Mm.
we're just in front of screens constantly. This is like our reality. And we didn't realize that by adding so much tech into our lives, we are taking away all these gifts that God has given us with our natural senses. So interesting how that has turned out for us, right?
I like when you say natural senses because you're bringing something that sounds woo woo to, back to reality as humans.
Yeah,
We actually can see beyond of what we're seeing now.
yeah,
And I think it's being reduced because sometimes I see myself like I'm on my phone and
mm-hmm,
then I look up and I
mm-hmm,
see different, like blurry, or, and I'm like, that's because I'm on my phone.
yeah,
And so it's changing. My eyes, even the way I see, is
yeah,
changing. I mean, apart from age, I know that has an effect as well.
sure.
But but there's a difference when I'm looking at a tree or a plant or even the sun, right? Like even if I close my eyes and
Yeah.
allow the reflection of the sun,
Mm-hmm,
I open my eyes and I see very different, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you can see that it's very natural.
Yeah,
But there's a difference, right? The sun is healing. It can be damaging if like excess, but the sun is actually very, very healing
yeah,
for us. And that's also another thing we've separated from, allowing the light to enter our skin or allowing ourselves to out of fear. I think we're fearing nature because
mm-hmm,
can control it.
mm-hmm,
So we're running away from
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think there's a big part of humanity that's running away from it. Like when we look at if we live in cities, we both live in cities, so we can really see this city tendency. But I do believe that a lot of people who spent their early 20s and 30s behind a desk and a computer screen once COVID hit and people realized a lot of things for themselves, I see these people saying, you know what? No, I'm gonna sell everything. I'm gonna go move to the forest. I'm gonna become a chef, playing with food again, right? Getting creative with food again. I'm gonna work in construction. I'm gonna become manual again. I'm gonna start a farm, a floral farm, a fruit and vegetable farm, a tree farm. So this desire to reconnect to our manual, very human, very co-creative self is coming back, you know? It's even through music, becoming a musician, you know? There is that. It is shifting and moving in
Mm-hmm.
that way, but it's hard to
Mm-hmm.
see it because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who, I want to say in the most polite way, and maybe I just say it how I am, you know, a lot of people have fallen for the trap of the constructed society that um, big companies have created for us. This has been in the works since the 50s in the States. We could see that happening after wars. So I digress a little bit, but it seems like the message needs to be made clear, which is this: free will and choice is still available, and we can all choose to step out of the constructed reality and walk into what's very real as a human experience. I digressed a little. I had to.
I love it. I love it. When you mentioned the word manual, I realized there was a few things that came personal.
Yeah.
One thing, like architecture, design, interior design, I'm on my computer a lot,
Mm.
designing,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
of course.
And I use technology.
Hmm.
But while you were speaking, I'm thinking, actually, I need to sketch more. Or not maybe the word need, but I need to allow more room for sketching.
Mm.
And I do sketch all the time, but more intentional. Going back to the word intentional. And
Hmm.
I thank you for saying that about technology and bringing it back, because in a way I was almost thinking like, well, that's all I can do,
Hmm.
be in technology. And I love
Really?
technology.
Sure.
And and I have a story about that. I met someone recently, and he only has a flip phone
Fantastic.
and no social media, anything, right? So he is living a different life where people, that it's very rare. It's almost scary to live the way he lives, off grid in a way.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, you meet him and he's full of life, right?
Mm.
He's very present. He's not distracted. He's there. And he's also communicating the things he likes and the things he doesn't like,
Mm-hmm.
but in a very natural way. You don't feel uncomfortable. You feel like, oh my God, that's true. Or like if something is too loud or something is, very silent, like he's constantly very aware of his surroundings, but it seems calm in a calm way. So I, because it can be annoying when someone is constantly complaining or whatever, but it's
Sure,
not
of
in this
course.
case.
Yeah.
But what I realize is I don't want a flip phone because I love technology. I love having my phone and hitting Shazam when a music is on, and I really
Yeah.
want to know that music,
Same.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do have intentional moments without my phone. It's
Good.
like I take a few hours a day where I leave the phone in the house and I would just go for a walk, right? Or
Beautiful.
even if I'm gonna go interact with someone, I'll leave my phone, right?
Yeah.
Or I'll leave it on my, if I'm meeting with someone or talking with someone, I just put it on my purse and not look at it. And even sometimes I'll put it in airplane mode, right?
Yes. Good.
Another thing I have is no notifications on my
Yeah.
screen.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I open my phone, then I see. And then one more thing I do is I don't respond immediately to everyone, because I want to be in a present moment to answer their questions. Even if it's a simple question,
Yeah.
I want to be present when I answer my friends. And sometimes I'll tell them, like, hey, I won't respond immediately. I need time. Sometimes I don't. And, I talk to them afterwards, like, hey, I took my time because I really wanted to hold space for you.
Yep.
Or, maybe I don't use those words, but, just
Mm-hmm.
make it simple. And then what practices do you do?
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I believe that, or I'm starting to recognize the fact that everything that's created by God is good. And because it's accessible to everybody, it can be bad.
Oh,
So already having that understanding, I say to myself, this thing here is a tool. How do I use my tool, or how does my tool use me? So my phone is on silent all the time. I work with, well, let's put it this way. I walk a prayerful life. So what happens is that I have an instinct when I need to check my phone. And very quickly, I will see that I'm getting a message or a phone call or something else. So my phone, I never hear it. I'll only hear it for my alarms. And if someone is like, okay, Maya, turn on your phone, off silent, I'm going to be calling you, which is mainly my siblings and my bestest friends. They'll be okay, like, oh, because they know the phone is always on silent, and it's just an intuitive movement for me. The phone will be on airplane mode when I feel like I literally need to disconnect from this reality. As soon as the phone goes on airplane mode, it's like I'm on flight mode. So, not accessible to any public access. I think that's it. So, I love
wow.
technology. I think technology is an amazing tool, but I personally, in anything in my life, I don't like anything or anyone taking it over. This sensation that I'm drowning me, who I am, feeling drowned, squeezed, caved in by something else is very uncomfortable. So, like any human being, some things that can happen to me because I'm very human, but it's a very uncomfortable thing. So the phone is very secondary, and I'm like, my tool. My phone is mainly like for music. I love music. I love sound. I am so deeply moved by it in all of the ways that it can move us. So it's really my tool for listening to music. And then, yeah. And I never answer messages right away unless it's a sense of like, okay, spiritually, prayerfully, this needs to be answered right away. Spiritually, prayerfully, this can wait. This needs, or like this subject matter needs time for me to marinate in it, pray over it, then I could answer. So I'm a big advocate for pure communication. So once I get a message and I read it, I'll say, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And then I don't feel any kind of pressure to answer. I'm really sitting with the conversation. I'm really praying over it. And then I'm asking God to speak through me. Whatever I'm answering, it can be like, what do you want for supper? Okay, wait, let me pray on that. Because the desires of the flesh, the desires of my ego will be the first thing that will answer, because this is a society we run in. And often that choice is the wrong choice. It's like my ego wants pizza because emotionally I've been challenged today. Often when I go have that pizza, my digestive system is like, no, girl, you needed a bone broth, you know? So Yeah, it's funny how it goes in this direction, but yeah, it's totally like that. It's like, okay, what's happening when I'm making that choice? Who's choosing? Who's the person choosing? So it's also that creatively. It's also that creatively. This
Yeah.
like, oh, I can go on Pinterest to be inspired, or I can open up a magazine, pull out my sketchbook, and just start sketching. Like it doesn't have to be a program project,
Mhm.
but yeah, who's deciding?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I have a lot to consider for my life. I allow my ego to pick the pizza all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I mean, I do too, but I'm also
Yeah.
like, hey, that's not going down so right.
That's
I'm
a good
happy I
question.
fed you in the moment, but next time let's try. There's no pressure there, right? For me, I'm not
Mm.
pressuring myself. I'm just like, next time you can do better because you'll feel
Mhm.
better if you make the better choice.
That is true.
Yeah. If we
That's true.
know, right, there needs to be wisdom and knowledge there too happening. Yeah, that also
Yeah.
needs to be happening.
Wisdom and knowledge. What you live a very intentional life, and to allow that space to be what should I eat, but also should I answer now? And maybe not the word answer, just allowing the feeling of yes, this feels right, or no.
Mm-mm,
So almost like, no, 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 or yes, yes, yes attitude
mm,
constantly.
mm,
And that takes a lot of discipline and practice.
mm, mhm.
So congratulations.
Yeah,
And I know maybe for a lot of people that's the opposite
yeah,
of the way.
mm,
I don't know the answer, but this in at least for me, it feels very intuitive, very present, and removing a lot of the pressures of constantly being, available, available, available.
yeah,
It's almost like you're putting very clear boundaries around you.
yeah. Um, I don't think I was always so good with boundaries. I definitely was not so good with boundaries. I think I carry like a childhood, a very complex childhood. And that often leaves children to not really have great boundaries. And then they grow up as teens with not great boundaries. And then adulthood sets in. And you realize, like, hey, wow, I kind of just let everything pass. So over time, I've learned how to put up boundaries. And I put up those boundaries to protect myself and preserve um, a healthy state of balance for myself. Now, it's not always like that. When I get into this thing about my feelings and emotions, I think my boundaries can be a little wonky, or the intentions behind the boundaries can be maybe too rigid. I carry some rigidity inside of me. I carry a DNA pattern that being rigid is there very strongly. So I honor that because I honor what I carry, but I know what it is that I'm carrying. And so as I grow into my 40s, everything is kind of like transmuting. And I'm like, I can have boundaries, and they don't need to be stiff, right? They don't need to be like solid, but they definitely need to be crystalline and respectable for me and the other person. So there's more of a consideration of the other person, but I'm communicating very purely with my boundaries. So I'll explain why I put up a boundary. I'll be like, you know what? Right now, this boundary needs to exist for me because I'm scared. And so people are taken aback when we say the honest truth, like, hey, you know what? I can't receive you in this moment because I can't even receive myself. I think the more we get comfortable with just saying, you know what, I'm going to tell the person straight up, I'm going to say something that may make you feel uncomfortable, but right now, there's no space for me, and there's definitely no space to receive you. So as much as I'm an artist and I'm a giver and this mama spirit within me, no, there's also the importance of like, having space to expand, integrate, ground, feel good for me, right? Before I could give to others. So as any designer or artist, we're here to give and we're givers, but then we completely forget the fragility of our physical existence. We will give until our body does something and says, hey, slow down. I don't believe it has to be that way. I do believe artists can live a life of balance, but it will mean like honoring where we know we could go into our extremes, allowing ourselves to step into the extremes, but pulling ourselves out before we drown. That's kind of like a slippery slope, right? Creatively, right? When the client is asking for many things and we're in the fluid movement of receiving and creating with them, we forget our body, and the client also forgets that we have a body, right? So we'll come up with different sketches. They don't like it. Do more, do this, do that. I need this, I need that. Wow. You know, what's interesting is that with the pandemic, what we lived with that, everything has slowed down. Delivery of goods have slowed down. So it forces the client to step into their insecurities of projects being slowed down or projects not turning out how they would like it to turn out. And clients realizing, like, hey, there is no perfect project, there is no perfect vision as we plan it, right? The perfection is like in what comes together when we're co-creating with what we have in the moment.
There's that reminds me of when I'm painting.
Yeah,
I can last an hour or days in one painting,
sure.
just one painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I started doing this thing is like I don't want to. So listen, my reasoning. I don't want to waste this paint because sometimes I put or too much in my palette, too much paint, and
Right.
then it's gonna go to waste. So I started doing this technique where it's a simple technique. Probably many do it, but it's like I'm gonna use the rest of the paint, right? And I just do it and I use it all in a different painting.
Yeah.
Not the one I spent days on or a day on.
Mm-mm.
And the thing is, people love
Uh-huh.
the one I did in 1 minute or two
Yeah.
minutes. People are always like, wow. And I'm inside of me, I'm like, but that didn't take me long. And at the same time, it's like this is part of the experience. Sometimes you take, I don't know if you've heard about this theory about the 10,000 hours, that sometimes we have to spend 10,000 hours in one thing to become an expert in it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it's almost like that. Like this painting that took me hours or days to make, that took me to this place of making a painting in 1 day or one minute.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
same with other artists like musicians and stuff. Sometimes they create a song in just 3 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And it only took them 3 minutes to make, and that made them millions. But the
Yeah.
one they took years, people don't even listen to it.
Uh-huh.
And there's a dying inside. It's like, but the one I spent all this time.
Uh,
But there's grief in it, but there's also about the miracle in a way. Wow, this is a miracle. And that miracle made me this amount of money.
yeah.
And going back to your clients and what they're asking for,
Yeah.
sometimes when that happens where it's like control or perfectionism
Mm-hmm.
is like basically obligado, like it's that's all we can do, there's nothing else I can do there. It becomes a masterpiece sometimes, and people
Yeah.
are like, wow, this is beautiful, or wow.
Yeah.
Then they feel good, right? Then their
Yeah.
ego is happy.
I think it depends. They're not always happy.
Yeah.
And the ones who are not always happy with the end result is because they're not happy in general in their lives. It's a very
Mhm.
unfortunate thing to say, but in my experience, at least in creating art through flowers, some people will love your work and other people will just be completely unsatisfied because it's not resonating in their everyday. So I've gotten very much used to having both. People love it, and people, no matter how beautiful it is, cannot find the beauty in it. It's a very interesting reflection of how people view art, you know, like I'm called to bring some attention here, and like maybe for some of the listeners it might bring up some tension for them, so I'm putting the warning there before I speak, right? This it came to me this week, you know, we are filled with beautiful art, okay? And for me, over the past couple of years, watching people go into museums and destroy this art has been heartbreaking for me. They're taking a stance on climate because of whatever their reasoning is, which is fine. I do believe everyone is entitled to their own thing. But to destroy beautiful art for coming generations, yeah, heartbreaking, because this again is like the single movement that is destroying art history for the globe, no matter where it's coming from. Do you understand what I'm saying? Art is art. Art is art. The artist who created that art probably was starving, you know. Most artists over history have gone through trauma and terror and fear and starvation and homelessness, and they created art. And so my heart breaks for the coming generations who won't have access to this art, you know?
I can also see it in a different light where
Yeah.
then that becomes a different art for our generation.
Mm-hmm.
So there's beauty in destruction. So this art being destroyed, we go back to the grieving, right?
Yeah.
But it's changing because we cannot control it again.
Mm-hmm.
There's no control. So then finding the beauty in that destruction. And you're right, like the architect for La Familia Sagrada was hit by a car and died because people thought he was a homeless and no one helped him, right? That this genius
Mm-hmm.
that no one has surpassed to our day, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was allowed to create something, you know, so immense and crazy in a way, just died because people thought he was a homeless and didn't help him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it goes back to we're human again, even if we're creating these masterpieces. And in a way, we see history and there's war and a lot of precious documents or historical facts that probably can save us today
Yeah.
were destroyed because of
Yeah.
war.
Yeah.
And so there's so many destruction, and the only thing we have left is that, there's a knowing, that knowing or is it because it's in our DNA and in our
Mm-hmm.
history? Everyone, inherits this kind of knowledge, and it's our responsibility to put it back into the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the new art, which is sometimes not even new, right? This
Right.
this idea of new, it's just rebirthing,
That's right.
because
Yeah.
and you're doing it beautifully because you're giving it room. You are not allowing your body or your mind to be, distorted, so you can have room to create, to be present. And there's a book I want to recommend. Maybe you've read it, but Creative Act.
Okay, no, I haven't read it.
It's a beautiful book.
Mhm.
I think he talks a lot about the topics we mentioned today. And I think it's a good book. Like, everyone should read it.
Okay.
Everyone should read it. Yeah. He
So I'll
puts a
look.
lot of concepts in it that are the woo-woo part, like I keep saying, bringing it back to just, this is how the artist works.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a rebel act. So it's the creative act.
I love this. I love a good rebel act. This rebellion through creation, right? Challenging what is happening in the present moment. The stream of how art is coming through, becoming rebellious, breaking the mold. That's something I love to do as an artist. I think it's really essential, and I think most artists are driven by that desire to break the mold. Yeah, in whatever way we're being artists. So I think I'll like that book very much.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you will.
Mm-hmm.
Maya, thank you so much for today. Thank you for your words. Thank you for, holding space with me and allowing me to hold space to communicate your words. Anything else you want to say to listeners?
Yeah, because there's something that's coming up. I do work with children, and I'm so honored to work with kids, and it's mainly through painting that I do this, and or crafts, and it's the most fun thing ever. And I just want to invite people to have fun and be curious, to create in any way their spirit sings them to do so. The joy I get, the joy I see in the children's faces just by looking at color, being playful without rules and regulations. I have such a deep prayer within myself for humanity to find that joy, because through it all, joy still exists, right, for us. So I want to encourage the listeners to just have fun, enjoy without structure. Can be scary at first, right? But play around with that. Let go of all responsibilities, and it can be anything. It can be even raking up leaves right now. We're in autumn season here, and just get out there, play with nature. Oh, nature is so much crying for us to listen, echo, play, enjoy, create. So this is like this is my prayer for everyone who will take time to listen, is just find the joy in co-creating with creation itself. It doesn't have to be complex at all. It can be with whatever you have around you. It can be cooking. It can be playing with crayons with your nieces and nephews and children, just even if it's for 10 minutes a day. Reconnect with joy. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Adios.
Adios.
Besitos.